Wisdom. I'm Sandy Pope. I'm hosting the program today for Linda Singh, she is the producer and normally the host of her own program. But today she asked me to host the program, and we're talking with, make sure that I get the names correct, uh, Marty Goodman. Marty Goodman is
Yes,
an activist. Welcome to the program.
thank you.
And then also Iman Udin, who is also a laid-off station agent for the MTA. Welcome to the program again.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
inviting us.
Okay, so tell us a little bit of history about yourself. Um, let's see, Marty. Marty, a little bit of
Okay,
history.
I've been a station agent for 24 years. Station agent is the person in the booth, the booths that remain, I should say. And we distribute Metro cards. We also answer a lot of questions and update people on uh, problems they may encounter in the subway. The MTA as a whole, includes bridges and tunnels and buses and trains. But I'm a subway station agent, and very happy with my job in terms of what I like to do is helping the public. But we can't be helping the public now because there are massive cuts in service, and there will undoubtedly be more cuts. The fare is going to go up December 30th, um, and there's possible layoffs in the future. We don't know how the budget is going to go. We don't know how the recession will play itself out. No doubt the MTA will continue its attacks on our union, the
Wow.
Transport Workers Union Local 100, which is the subway and bus workers.
Right.
They will continue those attacks. They're attacking us now, and it'll go on as attacks are happening all over this country and all over the world. And we need to look at the source of those attacks, which is the crisis that started on Wall Street because of the crooks that do business down there. There is a crisis in their confidence in their own system, but they've told so many lies and they've betrayed so many people, the system actually just collapsed to a large degree.
So,
And they're making working people like transit workers pay the price, but also the riders who are facing a fare hike and massive cuts in service, massive cuts, unprecedented cuts. So we're all victims, riders and transit workers.
wow. So where was your station located?
86th Street in Central Park.
Busy station over there.
No, not so busy, not
Yeah.
the slowest in the system, but
Right.
somewhere in the middle.
Right. So today what we're trying to do is find solutions to some of these problems. And let's talk with Imad Udin. Imad, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you decided to join the MTA.
Well, I always like to uh, deal with public because I guess I'm an international person. I'm multilingual, multiracial, and I just love the people of the world. And um, so this is what excites me, to be in public and helping people that are coming from all over the world to New York City.
Right. Your station was where?
Last time I worked was 96th Street.
Right. And you've been with MTA for how long?
Little less than 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And so you're saying that you are multilingual.
Lingual.
What languages do you speak?
I speak German, Spanish,
Sprechen Sie
Bengali.
Deutsch?
Ich spreche
What did I
Deutsch.
say? You speak German. What else do you speak?
Doch, Spanish,
Spanish. Great. Okay.
Bengali, Hindi, Urdu.
So now, what drew you to this MTA position? I mean, are you able to use all this expertise in language and in that?
Well, very much, yes, very
Really?
much,
Nice.
yes, very much.
Good. So now you're laid off. What happened? What did they bring you? Tell us the experience you had. One day you walked in,
Well,
happy.
I
pink-
just
pink
got
slip.
the letter that we were just to surrender all their property and, you know, gave us like 7 days, and on certain day we brought all the property there.
Wow. And so
You
what
know,
did they?
keys, uniforms,
Oh,
and we just went to Brooklyn and surrendered all of it.
wow.
And
That
they
must have
gave
been
us.
a horrible feeling, huh?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we were holding all this stuff, and we felt like part of New York City subway. We had a free pass, you know. We were able to use to enter the subway, and all of a sudden we don't have that. Or we don't have the access to the subway, and we
Just closed you out. Seemed like they just
right,
closed you out. Yeah.
and yeah.
So
Yes.
now, what did they give you when they gave you your pink slip? The champagne, flowers?
Oh no, they didn't give us none of this. They just gave us a Metro card for 1 week, and
After-
then
After 4 years of working with Metro, with the transit,
almost 5 years.
5 years, then they give you a Metro card for 5. What was that supposed to do? The 1 week Metro card.
I don't know. I couldn't understand that.
So now you have to go. What's your next step for you being eliminated from the MTA system?
Well, I was expecting that they probably have some kind of assistance for us to be re-employed in another area maybe, but I heard they are hiring new people in other areas, you know,
So I don't understand
instead
that.
of,
Yeah.
you know, training us for other positions in other areas.
So they are training you for other positions.
No, they are not. I was expecting that.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they'll train us and take us to another area where they are hiring new people.
So they are. So let me understand. They are hiring new people. They're
Yes,
still hiring new people.
they did. Yes.
Especially the higher income people in
Oh.
upper management. They're giving away jobs, high paying jobs, to people in upper management, while our station agents, almost 500, are still
500
yes,
station agents?
478 is the figure that I
Wow.
heard, and there were several hundred others in different departments that were also laid off. It was incredibly cruel the way they did it to station agents. They did it on Mother's Day weekend in the spring.
Ouch.
Okay, can you imagine how the women felt being laid off? Many of them from the Black and Latino communities where unemployment is very high, but you know you have that certain expectation that you've got a future, that you maybe one day have a home, and then they lay you off right on Mother's Day weekend. Not Mother's Day, but the weekend of Mother's Day, when everybody is celebrating and being with family. They face this absolute disaster with you know, doom on the horizon and all of that depression. In the fall, not the fall, but August 13th, they did it on a Friday the 13th. And they show absolute contempt for the workers.
Wow.
We're merely saving money. Often when Mr. Walder, the head of the MTA, talks about saving money, he says he saved $500 million for the MTA in the last year, and of course that's with several hundred layoffs. He speaks of efficiencies and, you know, saving money as if they're not human beings. He doesn't, most of the time, he doesn't even mention layoffs. And much of the commentary on the transit layoffs.
So where's all this money going? I mean, we always hear rate hikes for, you know, for the passengers. So what's going with? I thought the MTA
A
had
high
a lot of money.
proportion of it goes to pay banks, interest on bank loans, but also interest on MTA bonds. You know, over the last couple of decades, the state, federal, and city subsidy for mass transportation, that, you know, one of the basic services for working people, has been cut back and cut back and cut back. Of course, we've got massive spending for war right now. We still have wars going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, very unpopular wars. If they stop that for 5 minutes, he could have a job back and all the rest could have their job back.
Okay.
But they cut back on mass transportation, so they got to fund it somehow. The MTA, to fund transit, issues bonds to rich people. Most of these bonds are tax-free income for the
Wow.
rich.
Okay.
You must have at least $10,000
Oh.
to make any purchase of MTA bonds.
That's only one bond, 10,000?
Well, it's a block,
Okay,
a block of
right,
bonds.
right.
But you know, most of that is in tax-free income. For what? For basically doing nothing, sinking, you know, the MTA deeper and deeper into debt to the banks and the rich bondholders. And now, you know, in the last 10 or so years, we've paid out over $17 billion to the banks and the bondholders.
Wow.
And it will be increasing. The debt to the banks and the bondholders has doubled in the past 10 years.
Wow.
And it's expected to go way up. It'll be 24.6% of the revenue in 2017 to pay back the banks and the bondholders.
So,
If we suspended that or renegotiated that debt, that obligation, quote unquote,
right.
all of these workers would be back at work, all of the service cuts would be restored, and there would be no need for a fare hike.
So why, you say, whatever you're saying there sounds very simple. Why
Yeah.
isn't it done?
Why? Because
Well, okay,
the
you first
MTA
mentioned-
board,
You first mentioned this Mr. Walder.
yes.
And what he's doing with some of the monies that should be going to Eden. He's moved from Tribeca, you said, to,
Well, he personally has a subsidy of $5,000 a month for his living accommodations. That is, I can't even pay my own rent. It's always late. Sorry to my landlord who may be watching this, but he knows I'm always late. Okay, this guy's got nothing to worry about. $5,000 subsidy per month. He's got a golden parachute of several $100,000.
a golden what is that?
If he's dismissed for any reason, he's got like $700,000 or so in a golden parachute, and his income is something like $350,000 a year, which I
Wow.
believe is more than the governor makes.
Wow.
So you have an elite there running the MTA, almost all white, almost most of them male, but almost all white, reflecting I don't know what. It's not reflecting the people, the riders, the transit workers
Well, the riders
at all.
the riders must be happy with this.
They're
you
not
just hear-
happy at all with
well,
fare
you
hikes,
just hear about them.
service
when there's
cuts.
when you just hear about it, when there's a hike in fare,
Yeah.
then people come out and start, and then when the fare is applied, the people go away. So that doesn't really register that they're unhappy if they're riding the transit every day. The raise hikes are there, but they're not jumping up and down about anything. I mean, this is why this guy, Walden, is getting his $5,000 subsidy.
Yeah.
And this is why he was able to buy this condo for $1.something million.
9 million.
Nobody really cares.
1.6, rather.
Nobody really cares. Even
Well, they
the
do.
riders don't care.
They
They
do
just
when
ride
you
along,
talk
they
to them.
complain for 5 seconds and that's it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Right?
they're helpless.
They're helpless.
Well,
They're the
there's-
ones that
there-
paying. They are the ones that are paying.
Well, they
the
have to go
fare
to
and
work.
supporting this guy Walden and all the other bond holders and all of this. Supposing 80% of the people said you're an activist. Supposing the 80% of the transit riders said, on this day we will not ride any portion of MTA at all. What would happen?
I would say hallelujah. Number one. That's my first
It wouldn't
reaction.
work?
Oh, sure it would work, but people have got to get to work and they've got
Yes.
to get around and they've got to go to the hospital, the doctor,
So
whatever.
they're held captive then. They
no,
can't
not
do
necess-
anything.
That's
Well-
right. They don't have a lot of people. They don't have cars. They don't have no other ways to go there. You know, wherever they're supposed to go. So
That's your solution.
I believe that all the unions should get together and have massive protests at the MTA. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
What do they
if there was
protest?
the lead,
What are they going to protest?
if there was the leadership there. Were they going to protest the fare hikes the service cuts and the layoffs. They're all working people. We're working people.
Why can't they just do
and unlike
layoffs? Why do they have to do everything? Why don't they just lay off? Get Mr. Uden his job back and the 500 station agents.
That's what I say. Fight layoffs,
Yeah.
reinstate the laid off workers right now. We're all workers. There's 10% of the workforce out of work. It's much higher in the black community, particularly black youth, Latino community, the immigrant communities who've been hit hard by these layoffs in transit. We should all come together, the riders, the transit workers, all titles, all backgrounds. Let's get together and fight. This is the fight for all of us.
So when is this fight going to happen? You're talking about December 30th.
I'm trying to make it happen. This guy is trying to make it happen.
What are you doing about it? I mean, you're saying that in 3 months you'll be out of unemployment.
Out of income, yes.
Huh? So what else are you going to do? You're organizing your community and saying, we're going to fight against this layoff. What are you going to do?
Well, we have our union, and so they are better equipped to do it. I'm with them, you know, and we'll do it, you know, with the help of other members of the union. We are trying, and also I'm looking for other options, you know.
Okay, what other options? Walmart.
Like,
We talked about Walmart before.
right,
Before the show came on, we were
Right.
talking about how,
But that's like a minimum wage job.
well,
Well,
but still,
And people complain about being forced to take either not find the job at all or take the most minimal wages as
well, you don't have a choice. You don't
well,
really have
I
a
mean,
choice, do you?
if I was out of work, I might apply to different places, but just think of the injustice of this. Not only is a person deprived of the income that he was making, but the whole community is deprived of the services that he would be providing or paying for in the community. So it really does hurt the entire economy to have a person take that kind of a job. If he could find work, if he
Right.
could find work.
Right, right.
What is he to do if he can't find work?
I don't know. I'm
Are we
asking
being
you. What do you
discarded like garbage?
I don't
I
know.
mean, what are working people? Do we have any
Welfare,
rights?
well, I mean, you had a right to organize and get people to fight against what the MTA is doing.
We do have
That's
that
one
right,
right.
but we didn't lay off anybody. It's the MTA, the Transit Authority, and the rich board members that have done that in league with the banks who are demanding their blood money.
So somebody's happy in all this process. The board members and the owner of this Walden guy, they all happy. Why should they change their lifestyle for you guys?
Well, we've got to make them change. We've got to make them change. They're not going to change their lifestyle. They'll be happy to soak up whatever money they make, and they use it as just a stepping stone on the MTA board for other jobs, other connections.
So
maybe telling their pals to look out for some business with the MTA.
Well, probably when we were talking before the show began, we talked about the Metro card and how that slipped in, and everybody was happy about it, I guess. But that was a component to job elimination. Because now we don't need an agent if we can just go to the little machine there and plug in Metro card and plug in your card and the cash, whatever, and get the card and go. So that eliminates. I think that's a big component to eliminating jobs. What do you think?
Absolutely. They introduced the Metro card in the early 90s. There was an agreement between the union and management on allowing this to happen. I opposed that agreement. But
You saw the future in this?
I
Metro
saw the
card
future,
stuff?
yes. And anybody with really any perception in the labor movement did also. But what we're seeing is, the elimination of jobs through automation, which is the reason a boss brings a new machine into
Right.
the process
Automation,
anyway.
right.
It's only there to eliminate jobs. And if automation can do all these things. Well, we could be around assisting the customers, but we all need to work, and we all need to provide that service for the riding public. These layoffs are not merely layoffs; they're also service cuts.
Service cuts. What's a service cut? What do you mean?
Service cut, you go down a stair, you go into a train station, and there's nobody there to tell you,
okay,
is
yeah.
the train running? Is it slow? Is there a problem on the other end? Is there some crazy guy
Right.
hanging around to hurt you?
Right.
They're
how much-
deprived. That's a service cut.
So how much money did transit save by laying off all these?
They say that they've saved through layoffs and cuts $500 million in the last year. The absurdity is that the amount of money that they've saved by laying off station agents, the 470, I've heard figures from $50 to $90 million, which is a small percentage of the MTA budget.
Right. So where does
Small
that money
percentage.
go? So if they made those cuts, and where does that money go? What
That money will be funneled back to the banks and to the tax-free bondholders. That's where much of that money goes. If, for example, the revenue bonds that that need to be paid, quote unquote, to be paid, amounted to about $800 million over the past year. Yet the so-called deficit was $800 million. Okay, now if we as the MTA, if the MTA suspended payment on those bonds and say no, there's a crisis here, we're not going to pay that. We don't want our people laid off. We don't want to inflict that tragedy on people. We're not going to pay you because there's no money, they say. But instead of that, they'd rather pay the bondholders their money, their tax-free money, and you and I work, we pay taxes on everything. They do not pay taxes. The majority of bondholders do not pay taxes as we do. So they prefer to pay the bondholders, the banks, whoever they owe money to in interest, rather than keep people working in station booths and on the platforms to give information.
What was the general salary of station agents? Did they start low and
Oh,
go
I made around 50,000 last year.
That's a nice salary.
That's nice compared to not having a job at all or working at Walmart. Look, we fought every step of the way to get everything we have. What they say in the newspapers, that we make too much? No, it's that the other people make too little. They want to get out of the way and destroy those people who are organized like the TWU and fight for their rights like the TWU out of the way. They could cut wages, they can cut medical coverage, they could cut pensions, and then we would all be in a situation where we're all struggling and fighting each other.
So what are the unions doing if they're making all these cuts and laying off?
We were at Jay
What are they
Walder's
doing?
house every day for about, I don't know, 3 months. Every day we had a picket line in front of his house at Tribeca on Duane Street. We haven't been doing much protesting for a while. There's negotiations going on, so I'll just leave that be. But we have been doing that, and also we have our own fight back committee within the station department.
What do pickets do? What are you expecting out of picketing this guy Walden's?
Well, it puts a lot of pressure on him. It embarrasses him to have every one of his neighbors know that this guy has tried to destroy the lives of 470 station agents.
Wow.
Not only those individuals, but their families
Right.
are suffering tremendously.
Right.
This is the guy who would
Especially
rather pay the
students.
banks, rather pay the bondholders, than keep honest working people at the job, on the job. So that's tremendous pressure. We also got press coverage.
Press coverage. Okay.
Yes, we got front page press coverage in the AM News.
Right.
We had, the labor movement when they're fighting an unscrupulous boss. They have one of these inflatable rats. We had that there, and we really went at it. We had flyers and everything. So that's a headache that he would rather not see.
Oh, okay. But the end product is going to be what? What do you think out of Odin? What do you think out of Iman? I'm sorry. out
Yes.
of picketing in front of the guy's house, and is that going to help you?
Well, at least to bring it to his notice that he had affected a lot of people along with their family, you know, he would at least realize that there's a lot of resentment, you know, and that he inflicted a attack on a lot of families. He would realize that, you know. if
But
he-
I don't think they're thinking about that right now. All
well,
he's
it
thinking
seems
about-
like he's
Yeah.
not caring at all to begin with.
Do you think he doesn't care?
Um,
Really?
No, I don't think
You
he
think
cares.
he's in
No.
position
a lot of these people.
You know
in-
what? It's the
What would you like him to
the
do?
contempt for labor,
Yeah.
the racism that's in the society on the part of the elite who
How did he
control
get that
the
job
society,
anyway? How did he get the job?
conscious or unconscious. I think these layoffs are racist.
Connections.
essentially.
Okay, but how did he get the
He
job?
got the job because number one, he was a boss in one of the divisions of buses in Mabstoa, which is a part of the MTA back in the, when was it, the 70s or 80s? I forget.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he went to London after a time and became the head of the London
Connections.
Transit Authority.
Connections, yeah.
Connections. He was
friendship.
before he was the head of London Transit. He was working for a company called McKinsey and promoting these high-tech transit cards,
right.
which he's trying to get here too.
Oh,
And some people say, well, that's really a conflict of interest. Formally, he resigned from that position, but we know that the contacts, the connections are out
That's
there.
what it's all about.
The automated system initially cost $1 billion to install.
Yeah.
The previous president of the MTA, Elliot Sander, had a very high position with a company called DMJM,
Yes. Well, in short,
which was
in short, yeah.
promoting another kind of high-tech car that's used on the highway.
Well, in short, you still have some problems. I was happy to be able to host a show for Linda Singh this afternoon, but you still have some problems. You have to have the solutions. You're going to be out of your unemployment soon. You need to get working on that. So you got to keep working at it because it's just not going to go away.
We got to keep fighting.
Keep fighting, and hopefully maybe they make some change and you'll get your job back. Hi, I'm Sandy Pope, hosting for Linda Singh. Thanks for joining me.
Something to the race.